So now let's begin our Ask Everything session. I see that the room has filled up mostly, and I am going to introduce our three panelists. First, starting with Kathy Glennan. Kathy Glennan is Director of Cataloging and Metadata Services at the University of Maryland and is a music cataloging expert with over 35 years of experience. A MOUG member since 1990, Kathy has been active in cataloging-related committees for MLA and later ALA since 1992. From 2004 to 2018, she served on ALA's Committee on Cataloging, Description, and Access. Since 2005, Kathy has focused on developments of RDA with a special emphasis on music cataloging instructions. She has served on the RDA Steering Committee since 2013, first as the ALA representative and now as its chair, effective January 2019. Oh, gotta change that. Has been serving as chair since January 2019.
Oops, I didn't update that.
Yeah. Over the past decade, she has given numerous presentations on RDA, and she led the planning for MLA 2011 full-day RDA pre-conference. Many of her presentations are available via the RSC website at www.rsc-rda. Forget it. I'm just going to paste it into the
RDA-rsc.org. /presentations, I believe.
All right, here you go. If you are interested, there we go. All right, next up, Damian Iseminger is the head of Music Bibliographic Access Section of the Music Division at the Library of Congress, a position he has held since January 2017. The section is responsible for the cataloging of notated music resources and monographs about music. In addition to leading the section, Damian also works with the Policy, Training, and Cooperative Programs Division at LC in developing policy statements, guidance, and application profiles for RDA. Damian is also a member of the RDA Steering Committee, serving as the Technical Team Liaison Officer since January 2021. In this role, he is responsible for the maintenance and development of RDA reference for all, Sorry, I just got tongue-tied. He is responsible for the maintenance and development of RDA reference for use with linked data and semantic web applications and advising the RSC on the technical aspects of proposals submitted by RDA using user groups. This position builds on his earlier work with RDA as a member of the North American RDA Committee from 2018 to 2020 and as chair of the RDA Steering Committee Music Working Group from 2013 to 2019. Damian has been a member of MOUG in a professional capacity since 2007 and has served as a member of the MOUG board as secretary and newsletter editor from 2010 to 2012. And finally, Jay Weitz, Senior Consulting Database Specialist in Membership and Research, has been at OCLC since 1982. He was previously Assistant Catalog Librarian at Capital University, Bexley, Ohio. He is OCLC Liaison to MOUG, OLAC, MARC Advisory Committee, MLA's CMC, and the PCC's Standards Committee. In IFLA, he sits on the Bibliography Standing Committee, represents the Cataloging Standing Committee on CCDA, and is secretary of the Permanent Unimark Committee. He is the author of Cataloger's Judgment, both editions of Music Coding and Tagging, and Q&A columns of the MOUG newsletter and OLAC newsletter. He has a BA in English from the University of Pennsylvania, an MLS from Rutgers University, and an MA in Education from Ohio State University. Jay was recipient of the MOUG Distinguished Service Award in 2004 and OLAC's Nancy B. Olson Award in 2005. In 2019, he was the recipient of the Music Library Association's Lifetime Achievement Award, the highest honor, the MLA citation. All right. So thank you all for bearing with me as I got through those. I would like to open the floor to questions. This is not a typical session in where our speakers have prepared content, and we are here, or they are here, as three experts in the field to answer your questions. And the title of the session is Ask Everything. So I assume most everything is free game. We have our first question from Mark. Okay, so Mark has a question. I have a question about multi-volume sets with analytics and the link from the analytics to the series record. I think that's a question for Jay. Mark, do you want to come on screen and explain what your question is? I see you at the bottom of my screen. I can promote you. I will say yes. Let's do it. Oh, no, there he is. Hi, Mark. We can't hear you.
Yourself, Mark.
You're muted. No. At the bottom of the screen, the little microphone under all of our pictures. Oh, hold on.
Click on the microphone below your picture. That's how you unmute.
His computer just might not be recognizing the microphone.
Yeah, sometimes that happens. Okay.
And you can click on the gear and see at the end of that list of icons and see if that's the settings, see if you can pick the microphone that you have.
All right. Can you, well, let's Jay, does this question about multi-volume sets with analytics, Mark, is this an OCLC specific question? Sorry for the technical difficulties here.
Well, Mark is figuring that out. Let me just call attention to the note that I put in chat. An announcement came out today on rdatoolkit.org about login information if you've been using IP authentication in your institutions. This has changed how it works, and this affects both the original toolkit and the official toolkit. So please make sure that if you are used to IP authentication and you value that you follow the information, given that I haven't processed it myself, and as you might be able to guess, this is not my work office. So I haven't had a chance to see how that plays out in practice, but I wanted to make sure everybody knew about that announcement.
Okay, thanks, Kathy. Yeah, that's important. It's important for me because I don't know our password or login. I'm sorry, Mark. Maybe try leaving. I'm going to kick you out and try to get back in and reset your microphone and your. We can see you. We just can't hear you, unfortunately. All right. We have a question from. Actually, let's follow up with Ethan's question. Kathy, regarding the RDA login change, does that also apply to login to the toolkit via connection?
Okay, so this announcement came from ALA Publishing. So the answer is I don't know, and I'm not sure that they would know. It has to do with how OCLC processes the login information. I was just working with our graduate assistant in my department last week about the way that link set up in your options or tools, whichever is the appropriate one, sorry, in OCLC was getting her in some sort of odd place she wasn't expecting. That link goes to the official toolkit. And so if you're looking for the original toolkit, you're going to have to navigate there from the landing page, because when we switched, which was where accessrdatoolkit.org took you from, it used to be the original toolkit, now it's the official newer version of the toolkit. That is still the link that OCLC is using for obvious reasons. So if you need to navigate through that, or you want me to explain further about how you might get to the, say, the mark mapping or something else in the original toolkit, let me know.
Okay. Thanks, Dan. Thanks. Okay, we have Mark is coming back in. I'm going to see how this works this time. Hopefully we got some sound. Can you say something?
He's not muted anymore.
You're not muted, but we still don't hear you. I'm sorry. Okay. Sorry, Mark. Oh, wait. No, that was me. I could hear my... Sorry. All right. It's not that. I apologize, Mark. I don't know if you can figure it out, please come back, okay? Thanks.
Mark Sharp.
All right.
Next.
Oh, I would
Mark
note,
Sharp.
based on my last comment, Keith not put in comments. A few people have had comments. Keith was in a meeting with James Henley this morning. He said that currently the login from other utilities is not working, and that would require some changes. I'm not sure that actually, unless something changed since last Friday, it is working. It's just not working the way it used to work. But yeah, the instruction, Chuck Peters noted, the instruction is to click login without filling in the username and password. This is really difficult to do because it's autofilling. So you might need to clear your cache in your browser to stop the autofill. Those typical kind of remove your cookies, clear your cache kind of thing. Oh, it didn't work. If you're still having serious problems, either talk to your IT people or drop ALA Publishing a note through the feedback stuff and say that you need some help.
Is this immediate? Like it's happening now?
What now?
Like this IP auth thing is going away today, or is
it went away with the server upgrade? It's a problem. This is the way that they have solved the problem. They know it's not perfect. Okay, it's the best we can do under the current circumstances.
All right. Well, it's good to know. All right. I think Mark has a question. Mark Sharp has a question. Is there a fix to the macro for generating authority records in site? I assume this is for Jay. Oh, it says Jay. Yeah.
I guess it depends on what you mean by in site. Yes, we know that it needs to be done, and it is on our to-do list. I'm not aware of it being scheduled yet, but yes, we are very much aware of it.
I see Mark has put himself into the queue. I'm going to promote him to ask.
I was trying to signal for you to take me out because Jay just answered my question, but obviously you couldn't see me to do that. So yes, send me back to oblivion.
Okay,
I'll ask another one later.
See ya. All right. I also see Suzanne and Hermina down here in my queue, and I don't know if they are intending to ask a question or not. So if you are, please type in the 3 question marks into the thing so I can make sure you get your question asked. There's also one more question about a connection that I'd like to, just since Jay's already on this topic. What's the timeline of connection? Wondering when we should upgrade to 3.0.
Well, you are welcome and even encouraged to upgrade to 3.0 as we speak. I mean, anytime. I believe that most of the problems that were encountered early on have been taken care of, as far as I know, anyway. There's no, I don't know what you mean. I don't know if you were asking more about the timeline of when connection browser, for instance, will be going away. We've been encouraging people who use the connection browser to at least consider moving over to Record Manager, which has not only pretty much everything that the browser can do, but also a bunch of other things as well, including giving you access to several authority files that you can't access through Connection Client. But does that answer your question, Kevin?
It wasn't my question, but it
okay.
sounds like it was. But yeah, it sounds like you answered it. I know that Casey says in the chat that the macro issue is the only problem with 3.0. Everything else seems to work fine. Everything else works fine with it.
That's good.
So okay, and then there's a note that I will read this from Jennifer. It says, if you're talking about the one, I assume the macro created by Gary Strawn, he's put a note in his downloads that he hasn't been able to figure out the issue. And it's better that OCLC supplied macro. It's better than the OCLC supplied macros, so it would be great if it would be fixed. Okay, so the Gary Strawn tool doesn't work in 3.0 yet. Okay, let's see. We have a question from Ronnie. Some of this has already been said on the listserv, and some I already know, but it would be good to have some more clarity on what we should be doing with the new 348 subfield C, form of musical notation. It is preferred that we use the 348 field. No, it is preferred that we use the 348 field, but can 546 subfield B still be used with it? What will OCLC be doing with records retroactively, if anything?
Well, this is really an issue for those who are working on the MLA, the best practices, and the policy statements, the MLA policy statements. For now, I think it would be wise for catalogers to use both the 348 subfield C and the 856, excuse me, 856, I have 856 on the brain, the 546 subfield B, at least for the time being, because some systems may not accommodate both or display both. So if you want that information to display to your end users, it's probably a good idea to use both for now.
And I'll also add in to that from a technical perspective, what you put in 546 subfield B, there's no way to identify where that term came from. It's just a free text field beyond saying that it's a script. The advantage of using 348C in association with $2 is that you'll be able to specify your vocabulary encoding scheme where you took it from. So whether that's from RDA, whether that's from RDA or from another vocabulary, you'd be able to indicate that. So when it comes time to if for some reason your system wanted to convert that value to a linked data value, those values are unique within RDA. And so you'd be able to say, okay, we know that these terms are from this vocabulary and this matches up with this URI. So that's the big advantage to doing it. But as Jay said, if your system is not displaying the 3-4x fields, then maybe, and you think it's important that people know what type of notation you have, then go ahead and use 546b as well.
And to answer the last part of Ronnie's question, what will we be doing with records retroactively, if anything? That will, at least in large part, depend upon what the best practice is. If, as I sort of expect, we will be moving from using the 546 to the 348 for reasons that Damian at least hinted at. I imagine we have talked about the option later on of translating those 546Bs to 348Cs. So that is something that we would definitely be looking at sometime in the future. Yeah.
All right. It looks like Mark says thinks he's got his microphone working. So we're going to try this one more time. Ready, Mark? Here you go. Oh, nope. You're muted now at the bottom of the screen. I'm sorry. Oh, man. This is... okay, Mark. If you figure it out, if you want to try again later, let us know. Thanks. Okay. A question from Anonymous. I came across my first set of concert programs. Are these considered a serial, even though they're not published on a regular basis?
Well, I'll just very quickly say that something doesn't have to be regular in order to be a serial. It can be constipated. I mean, it can be irregular. It's really more what you want to do. It probably makes the most sense to treat concert programs as a serial in most instances, because I doubt you want to catalog individual programs by themselves unless you're a glutton for punishment. So, yeah, I think you could treat concert programs as a serial if you want to, or you could treat them as a multi-part monograph too, if you feel, if it's like a series of concerts for a one-off festival, something like that.
Any other comments? Oh, Jay left. Okay, well, I guess he didn't want to answer that one, so we're gonna move on. No, I agree. I think it's dependent on the situation, at least in my practice. But I would most often, I'm not part of the Ask Everything panel, but I'm gonna give my opinion anyway. I think it most often it works as a serial. Just concert programs work as serials. They're too difficult to describe individually. I don't know what that means, so I'm going to move on. This is a question from Tom. This may be more of a NACO question, but are we allowed to edit name authority records with 0247 URIs? Oh, okay, I see. 024 with a subfield 7 URIs. I think I remember there was a moratorium on changing some of these. What if we need to change fields that have URIs in them? This is a PCC question that, let's see. Casey in the chat says the moratorium ended in November 2020. There are best practices on the PCC website. And Casey's speaking from the PCC side of things.
Yeah, and I actually have a copy of the email message announcing that in front of me from Paul Frank on November 5th, 2020 to the PCC list, and I believe it went to the NMP list as well.
Now, to Tom's question, though, it could be that in your local system, and this is an issue at the Library of Congress, that R024s will not validate if there's not a subfield A in them, and it means you need to update your tag tables and stuff if you want that to happen. But you can edit those 024s, as we mentioned. But a lot of the records that the Library of Congress is getting in. They'll have all those 024s, but then no subfield A's, and then it doesn't validate for us. So I think that's part of where the question comes from. So, when in doubt, check your local systems, tag tables, or things of that nature.
Great, thanks. Okay. Oh, Kathy.
Yeah.
What are the latest developments with representative expression?
All right. I am currently looking for information that I can actually speak coherently about this, but who knows? Okay. So representative expression, nothing's happened in RDA because RDA is published, it's done, and it knows how it's dealing with representative expression. So there's not a whole lot to say from an RDA perspective. What did happen was that there was a proposal at the MARC Advisory Committee meeting in January of this year, proposal 2022-04, recording representative expressions in the MARC 21 authority and bibliographic formats. I was trying to find my notes from that meeting, but I can't in the time period allowed. I believe it pretty much passed as written, maybe with some very minor changes. And so it will be something that once this MARC update is applied by all of the players, then this coding will be available. And of importance to the music community is that the use of the 382 and 384, I believe, were preserved, but a new field was created for, a new MARC field was created for everything else. So that's my recollection of what happened. And I hope that answers the question Mark was really asking.
All right. Sounds good. Oh, Jay's back.
Yay.
That's good, Jay.
Sorry, I don't know what happened. My machine just shut down. Apologize.
Okay. Well, you're back, so that's good. We had a question in the chat that I skipped. It was, what is the problem with the macro to generate authority records? This is a connection issue, the connection question. So I figured I'd wait till Jay got back.
I don't know the specifics. So I'm someone who actually, I don't use that particular macro, so I'm not really familiar with the specifics. So someone else who uses it might be better equipped to, like Mark, probably.
Mark, do you want to be, I'm going to put you on screen. Maybe you know what's wrong with the macro.
Well, I don't know what's causing it, but what happens is, and this seems to happen in records that have a number of access points in them. If you use the macro, which consists of putting your cursor in the field and then going up and choosing the macro, which is then supposed to harvest data out of the record. It's supposed to format it. It's supposed to give you a menu that allows you to specify what form you want to put in the place where you put the form of name. Then it generates another thing that says, okay, I want to add these 38x fields or all this other kind of stuff. And then it magically whips it up into your authority record. What happens is that in some instances, and it's unpredictable to me, the whole thing freezes. It just stops. Or at best, it might be one of these things that the screen will refresh with one line of whatever's happening every 30 seconds. But sometimes it just freezes to the point that you have to just kill the session and go back in again, which is a little annoying if you've been working on a record. And as I say, I can't predict when it will happen, although some people have suggested that it's more likely to happen when there are more access points in a record, maybe something about the program having to just, maybe the program that decides which statements of responsibility that you're going to put in the subfield B of the 670 gets, it has too many choices and gets confused. I don't know, but I was hoping that the last update to connection might fix it, and no, it did not.
He says they're working on it. All right, Mark.
All right.
Thanks for the explanation. Come back when you want to ask something else.
Got.
Oh, sorry. All right. This is fun. I have a few comments that came from the chat that I wanted to mention. First, we're going to go back to 348 real quick. Keith Knopp says that the current draft of the best practices, this is the MLA best practices, say to use 348C if a controlled vocabulary term is available. If no controlled vocabulary term is available, we left it open as to whether 348C or 546B is chosen. That is not set in stone, though. Okay, so that's good to know. I saw something else. It must have been in the Q&A. Someone said, in regard to the 348 and 546 question, if your library is not showing the 300 fields to the patron, except for the first one, would it be better to leave the information in the 546 even if it's redundant? And I'll say yes. I mean, it would be better. Absolutely. Although I don't know how useful. Oh, Jay left again. His computer must be giving. I don't know how useful seeing staff notation in every single score, honestly, to me is, but you know, I think it's a useful piece of information that should be somewhere in data, I think. Okay. There was a comment. There's also a special section coming on representative expression at the CMC Town Hall that will be, that's at the MLA meeting, February 24th, I believe is the town hall. Yeah, I had it memorized. So if you are attending MLA, you should attend that. It's going to be a 15 or 20-minute session on representative expression. So that'll give a few updates from various people who are involved with that. There's a question here. I just saw it. Okay, I don't know who this is directed to. Maybe Jay should be involved with this, but we'll just ask it. How do we deal with machine harvested digital repository items come from a different schema and do not map correctly to MARC fields? I assume this is actually, I don't know. I think when you come across them in OCLC, there's not much you can, I mean, they're going to be converted the way they're going to be converted, and they're for someone else's digital repository record. This is my advice, non-expert advice. So I would say, I think you need to, if you were going to import this into your catalog, you'd have to probably fix it locally, because I honestly don't think it makes sense to fix the master record if it's somebody else's repository record. But that's just my opinion. I wish Jay was here.
Well, and I think the other option, you know, as long as you're not using the WorldCat record for your public discovery, would be if you encounter these and they're not mapped right and they don't make sense to you, then don't put them in your local copy of the record if you're in an environment where that is allowed. Our environment right now, we're using WorldCat Discovery, so that's not permissible, but not everyone lives there.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, of course. Mark says 346, the staff notation generally not useful to users, but other sorts of notation are. Yeah, I totally understand that. And I think I agree. And I just don't, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Yeah, I don't know. I see a 3 question marks from someone. It says Sharon, but I think Sharon needs to share video and audio in order to get up on the screen. I don't see, oh, there she is. Okay, let's do that. Hi.
Hi, I think I'm on and connected. Great.
Yep. you
So
are.
this actually was a follow-up. I meant to not post the Connect 3.0 anonymously. So Jay did answer my question, and then I was going to ask him a question about Connection Browser because I do updates to LHRs on that, but he's not here, so I'll just do something differently for now to get my answer. Thank you.
Okay. Well, when he comes back, he's probably having computer issues. If and when
Yeah.
he comes back, we'll bring you back on screen. You can ask whatever
Okay.
question that was. Okay. Great.
Great.
Thanks.
Thanks.
I see Mark again. Okay, Mark, we're gonna go for it.
Oh,
Hi.
I hit leave at the same time you did, so I think it put me back in the queue. So get rid of me. I'm gonna type a question for Damian, but get rid of me. Or I'll get rid of myself.
You can just ask it. Just ask it right now. It's
I'm-
for Damian. He's here on the screen.
okay.
I see him.
Well, okay, Damian. I was just gonna ask how things are going with the rearges at LC and whether you've got any projects going on.
There are always arrearages at LC. To be quite honest, we went. I can only speak for the music division. I can't speak for other divisions. Because we were limited, people are limited to on-site work. People are coming in at most 2 to 3 times a week. And the stuff that we would like them to work on site is the stuff you can't take off site, like our rare materials and things like that. So we've been concentrating on those, but as a result, our copyright arrearage has grown, and we've taken steps to start addressing that. For example, in January, we started just cataloging nothing but monographs just to catch up. So another person's arrearage is another person's job security. So, but we have nothing, at least in music division, that's really backing up right now.
Okay. To follow up on that, is the backup in the copyright thing, is it at the point of deciding what things you're going to add to the collection, or is it the point of actually cataloging the stuff you're going to add? In other words, do you get the decision about what you're going to keep pretty quickly?
All right. So just to explain the copyright workflow at LC, so people are aware of it. If you publish anything in the United States, you have to send in your 2 best copies, unless by reg you only have to send in 1 to the Library of Congress. And so that's sort of the first bit. And things have been coming in slower to the Copyright Office because of COVID. Okay. And then things are getting from the Copyright Office to the selectors slower, once again, because of COVID. So we're having sort of a breakdown in the supply chain that way. But when the books get to cataloging in my division, they've already been selected by the selectors. And being the Library of Congress, our selection criteria is pretty liberal. It takes a lot for us not to decide to add things to the collection. It's probably easier to say what we generally won't add to the collection in music division. So what we won't add usually, we won't add graded band pieces or graded orchestral pieces that are below a certain level. So for band, I think we don't go any higher than, don't go any lower than 4th grade. And some other things where we, like method books for children, we generally won't collect those. And when we get in a huge set of, let's say, orchestral parts, if there's a score with them, we will keep the score, but the orchestral parts we will surplus because we just really don't have the room to be keeping those, and we're not a performance library. But there is a little known fact, at least this was before the pandemic, all the things that we surplus, if you can nominate somebody who is at the library to go down to the surplus shelves to select stuff for you. And I know that and a good example of this was there are band programs in the DC area that would take the band music that we've surplused. And they'd have a representative come in and they'd take the stuff from the library free of charge. So I'm not sure exactly about the status of that program, since only employees and designated researchers are allowed on campus right now, but that's sort of the process in place. So to get back to the arrearages, the published arrearage is a little bit backed up because the catalogers have been concentrating on some other things. And, sometimes the circle is virtuous, but sometimes the circle is not virtuous. A lot of the copyrighted material, we're hoping that the greater community will catalog so that we can bring that stuff in and we can concentrate on the stuff that only we have. So we have to balance those two things right now.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. So Sharon came back. Sharon had a question for you, Jay, and you were off doing something. So here we go.
My machine did it again. I don't know what this. I'm keeping my hands. I'm trying to keep my hands off the mouse.
Okay, very quickly.
Sorry.
Thank you for answering the connection 3.0. I didn't mean to submit it anonymously, but thank you for answering that. But then you did bring up the connection browser issue, which when I read about it, I just said, well, I have no idea what I'm going to do. And I ignored it because I used that. And the only thing I use that for is to attach individual LHRs, because we have a retained print program and I can do it in connection browser. My understanding when I learned this is that I can't do it in connection. And when I use record manager, that seems like it's for batch, a lot of things. And this will be 1, 2, 3, occasional updates. Do you know where I will be going when connection browser goes away to update LHRs, local holdings records?
Yeah. It's not, the browser isn't, if it sounded like I was suggesting that the browser is going away anytime soon, I apologize. That's not what I meant. It's not going away anytime soon. We will give you plenty of notice. You can continue to use, especially if you use it only occasionally, you can continue to use the browser as you always have, probably for years now.
Oh, fine. Great.
Yeah. As I understand it, and I don't do LHRs either, so this is just hearsay as far as I'm concerned, but it's real. The record manager does handle both LHRs and LBDs. And as I understand it, so does the browser. You eventually, excuse me, whenever the browser is discontinued, but again, we'll give you plenty of notice for that, you will be moving to record manager. But again, we're talking years probably.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Sharon. Kicking out. Oh, she left by her own. Okay. There was, where did I see it now? There was a question that came through that maybe Jay can help with. How do you deal with machine harvested digital repository items that are in a different schema and do not map correctly to the MARC fields? And what are some strategies?
Well, if you can edit the record, and in many cases you can, if not in all cases you can, we'd be happy to have you edit with the, well, it wouldn't be the item in hand, but with the resource in front of you. Harvesting is miraculous when it works and I guess even a mess when it works. But yeah, we would welcome you to upgrade those records to something that's really usable. If you, I mean, a lot of those are on on the mixed materials format. So if you are able to change that to the correct format, that would be useful, and then to edit the record as you see fit. If you're not able to change the type code, you can report it to us and we can do it, and we'll leave the rest of it to you. Does that help?
I think so. I mean, I think that was an answer that, you know, this is an anonymously asked question, so I don't know who asked it, but I, when you weren't here, I gave the opposite advice: was just leave it alone and fix it locally. I think Kathy seconded me, but it's good to know that your opinion is, I mean, that we can change these, because sometimes they just cause messes.
Yes, they do.
All right, let's see. Oh, come on, folks. We have lots of time left, and I'm gonna, if we don't have more questions. Oh, wait, here's one. Okay, so at Jay Weitz, are they ever planning on updating the harvesting software so it does a better job? This is from Hermina.
That would be nice, wouldn't it? I'm not sure. I'm not sure to what extent that would be possible. It's not so much, at least as I understand it. It has more to do with the capabilities of whatever, well, usually Dublin core. But if anybody else knows better than I do, please chime in. I think it's mostly due to the limitations of Dublin core and the I guess the inherent problems in trying to translate something as general as Dublin core to something as specific as, or relatively specific as, Mark 21. So I'm not sure how much more, how much better it can be made. I don't know.
All right. Thanks, Jay. I'm waiting for more questions, but I do have a couple of things that came through on the chat. Kathy says, actually, Kathy, you just want to say what you wrote here at 12:33?
Sure. So this was the final information. I was actually able to finally locate my notes on the MARC proposal 2022-04, and Jay Weitz was also in that meeting. So if I get this wrong, he can correct me. But my notes say that that proposal on representative expressions was approved as written with the addition of the term characteristics to the name of the 387 field. So that what happens after MAC approves a proposal is that it basically goes to a final review to make sure that the international players, they have an official name, approve everything. And then that starts getting rolled out into documentation. Then the Library of Congress publishes that documentation, and then systems like and bibliographic utilities like OCLC say, oh, that's really nice. Now we have to respond to our, do a MARC update to our local tables and everything to accommodate changes. So it's a while before you will actually see this in place. And Jay might have a sense of how long it usually, I would say that process, depending on how hard it is, takes anywhere from 6 to 12 months, I would say, in my experience. But I'll let Jay actually really answer the question.
Can you repeat the question?
So
Sorry.
why don't you talk just briefly about how approximately how long it takes between when MAC approves a change and when
okay.
OCLC implements it?
Okay. Well, once MAC approves something, it has to be written up as changes to the MARC format. In recent years, we've been doing MARC updates, or what we used to call MARC updates, within 2 to 3 months of their release. For instance, the most recent MARC bibliographic update was published right toward the end of November. And we will be implementing that, the bibliographic update and the authorities update to just the non-LC version of our validation rules, the non-LC authorities, that is, version of our validation rules. We'll be implementing that toward the end of this month, so that's roughly 3 months. And it's been we've tried to get it on a much more frequent schedule and a more settled schedule than used to be. So when I'll be talking about the MARC update that's coming up at the end of toward the end of February tomorrow at the business meeting. But yeah, so it's usually 2, 3, 4 months.
Thanks, Jay. We have a question that came through on the chat, probably for Jay. When I save a new record in Connection browser, the 386 field disappears. Why?
I have no idea.
Is there a way to report a bug?
Yeah, you should report that. Well, report it to the next time it happens. Report it to the OCLC Global Help Desk, or to customer service, and they'll pass it on to probably to us. This is the first I've heard of that. I know that. I mean, the browser and the Connection client and record manager all use the same validation, so that that shouldn't be the issue. I know that the browser cannot handle non-Latin characters. So if there happen to be any non-Latin characters in the field, that would explain why it doesn't, why it disappears. But other than that, offhand, I don't know what the problem is. But definitely report that to us.
All right. Thanks, Jay. Okay, we have a few more questions that have just popped in. My library is developing a discovery layer that at the moment lacks a lot of functionality necessary for music discovery. I believe it converts MARC to BibFrame. It doesn't display analytical entries, for example. Any advice for advocating for music discovery in general? And then we had a couple of people in the chat who have shared the music discovery requirements in the MLA website. Although, what's this, Rebecca? Is this actually a link to it? Rebecca shared something. Casey mentions the music discovery requirements, and I agree that there's a lot of information there to help explain music discovery to non-music specialists and systems folks. Anyone want to add anything to that? Any of our don't all jump on it too quickly. All right. Well, whoever asked the question, check the music discovery requirements that Rebecca linked. I think that's a good place to start. Oh, it's 3 separate links. I see. Thanks, Rebecca. Next question up is from Andrea. It says, with the new DCRMR,
Descriptive cataloging of rare
Cataloging.
materials music,
no, R, as an R at the end.
RDA.
Oh, okay. I got it. With the new DCRMR, many of us haven't yet adopted the new RDA toolkit. What is the advice for you for use until the new toolkit is approved locally, not to mention by PCC?
So I don't have, I saw the announcement today. I have not had a chance to look at DCRMR. I would assume that the people writing DCRMR know that no one's using the new toolkit yet, and perhaps there's some guidance from them about what they expect. There's a lot about the official toolkit that is the same as the original toolkit. You don't find it in the same place, but a lot of the outcomes are the same, but not all of it. So I guess maybe start playing with the new toolkit so you become familiar with it. But in terms of what to do, you need to take guidance from the DCRM or RBMS folks, I think.
All right. Sounds good. I didn't. Okay. One more question. This is from Keith. LC PCCPS for preferred titles of aggregates of musical works in the new toolkit seems to be basically the same as the music division policy announced in the May 2020 edition of MCB. Does that mean the music division policy reducing the use of CC, what are these things called? Conventional collective titles in favor of aggregate titles is essentially being expanded to cover all music in LC BibCo records? Question mark.
Okay, so I'll be truthful up front. It's been so long since I wrote those LC policy statements that it could be very well that I incorporated what we've been doing in music division locally into those policy statements. However, what music division has been doing is in line with what has been announced by the PCC for limiting the use of conventional collective titles. So I believe the example was for poetry. You know, they're using the name, or other collections of works, they're using the name as it appears on the resource as the title for the aggregating work, as opposed to using a conventional collective title. So, I mean, the music division policy is in line with what PCC is doing, but there is a slight wrinkle to it. You'll notice in the guidance for that, I believe music is exempted right now. So that's a wider discussion. Probably the music community needs to make. Needs to have, I should say.
All right. And in the chat, Casey says, speaking as the BibCo music final coordinator, as far as I'm aware, non-LC BibCo practice for music CCTs, conventional collective titles, has not changed yet. So there's Casey, what he knows. I will
throw out there about this conventional collective titles thing. I could understand that some people are maybe hesitant to quit using them because maybe they like collocating collections of songs using song selections, stuff like that. But I think it's worth it to start thinking about alternative ways to collocate things. So, I'm in favor of using the title by which an aggregate is identified by, but there's no prohibition in the authority file on having multiple 4XX fields that are the same reference. There's none. So, I mean, it might be worth it to think about using a 4X X title that is song selections, for example. And then if you go to your browse file, you'd see song selections, and then you'd see all of these titles listed underneath C, blah, 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 blah. You know, so it's, I'm just throwing that out there as a possibility. But the decision I made worked for music division, but obviously we didn't want to unilaterally make that decision for everybody else in the music cataloging world. And so it's something that has to be discussed further if the community wants to do this, or it should be on an ad hoc basis.
Okay. Thanks, Damian. Wait, there's a bunch of comments that I'm just going to try to sort through here. Mark Sharf says, partial compilations will be interested to see how classification is handled. I assume that's going along with this CCT thing. Tom, I think this applies to the same topic. So I think it's fair to say RS, recorded sound catalogers agree to what music is doing, but we are still applying it on a case-by-case basis and reserving judgment. And then Casey says, I believe the switch to official RDA may force our hand on this, but that's for others on the inside to clarify.
I'll clarify in the sense of official RDA is not going to make you do anything. It really isn't. I mean, so the option is there that you could just take the title as you find it on the aggregating, on the manifestation, and use that title as your title for your aggregating work. But there is the option in the music instructions to continue using conventional collective titles if you so desire. So it's more as a policy group what you want to do. Do you want to ditch them, keep using them, or do a hybrid approach? So official RDA, as I've said, it's not going to really make you do anything because we're talking essentially about title strings. And so, how do you want to do your title strings for certain categories of musical works?
All right. I see Casey here. I'm not sure if I'm going to let him on screen and see if he has anything else to ask or add. Hi, Casey.
Hello. I just want to clarify what I had said in the chat hurriedly. Yeah. To Damian, what he said. Yeah, it's not RDA itself that's going to force it. What I was thinking is that all of the reconstituted MLA best practices, which will include a metadata guidance document external to the toolkit, and I don't want to step on Keith's toes here, maybe he should speak to this, but that's it's an opportunity for us to maybe as a community thoughtfully move forward together instead of the current situation, which is sort of Elsie's doing this and the rest of us are kind of hanging on to the past practice for now, watching and waiting and seeing. And I'm just thinking that the switch to official RDA may be our moment to sort of all move forward more coherently as a broader community. Or not, I don't know. I'm just trying to make sense of all of it with the shifting ground in different places right now. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Casey. Oh, left himself. Okay.
And I'll add on to what Casey has said. I mean, there has been movement within, at least I know within CMC and MLA to, go back in a way to, for lack of a better term, performer main entry. And it's really more because the RDA toolkit views access points as nothing more than as a way of naming something. Okay, and so however you want to name that is up to you. And so one way of naming it is that for a compilation, for something like, let's say, Exile on Main Street by the Stones, MLA has set up a thing that we want to go back to using Rolling Stones as the personal name part of the access point, and Exile on Main Street is the title portion, and that would be the title for your compilation. So MLA has already put this forward to the PCC, and it's going to be incorporated into LC policy statements, I believe, or the MLA best practices. So I saw your shudder, Casey. that's just what some people in the group are used to. It's not really, there is no main entry. But if we want to name what this compilation is, we can do something where we use the name of the group plus the name of the album. We could also use, and that's what we're doing right now, but or what's being proposed, but we could also just use the name of the album if we wanted to, and not worry about you putting a performer in the access point that represents that album. We could let other fields do that talking for us. For example, could have a 5XX field in that authority record for Exile on Main Street, and it says the creators, the people associated with it are the Rolling Stones, something like that.
And I'll just add the reason official RDA won't come down and tell you how to create title strings or access point strings is because that is a community-based decision, and it's not going to be something we can get international agreement on. So there's a flexibility of having a user community, whatever that might be defined as, or even a cataloging agency, making different decisions that the toolkit itself still supports.
Okay. Thanks,
And
Kathy.
I'm sorry, just to add on to that, thinking about like what some place like Wikidata uses, as long as we have a persistent identifier for this particular work, we could create as many labels as we want for it. And if you go on Wikidata, I'm thinking of something, you'll see they'll have the main page for, let's say, an album, and then basically they'll have a bunch of AKAs, so, technically this is, everybody says this, but, the White Album is technically the White Album of Pillars Nowhere. And so it's often called the Beatles. And it could be also then AKA the White Album, John's Crazy, Music Concrete at the end, something like that. So, at the end of the day, I think we're going to have to be thinking more about, well, what labels are useful to people, and provide those as long as they all point to the same resource.
Yep. Like Led Zeppelin 4. All right. Let's see. We got a few more minutes. There was one question from Mark. He's asking about, nice formatting of contents notes. The list type with new lines for each dash in WorldCat is not transferring when imported to my library system Ex Libris Alma Primo. Is there coding used, or is there any way to keep it with normalization? I don't know if that's something Jay can address, or if this is something on the Alma side.
My assumption is that it's something that Alma would have to address. As far as I know, there's no special coding aside from double hyphens. Yeah, I would guess that you'd have to talk to your local system.
Okay. Thanks, Jay. And then we have Mark, who has another question, and we're going to bring him up. End this thing with a bang.
All right, so this is back to partial compilation. So I guess this is for Damian. And I confess, I've had to work with it a lot in my non-music cataloging hat, because I've been working a lot on situations. I've been cataloging individual poems, and you'd be surprised how many times compilations have the same title as an individual poem within the compilation. So when that happens, in order to get the authority control software to work properly, I actually have to I have to do some operations on the authority records to remove that title from the poem selections or whatever, and remove the 670 and, tell LC that I've done all this and everything. So has that been are there been situations in the music division's implementation where that's been happening?
I'll be honest, I don't know of a lot of instances of that where we're we're not where we're going back and having to re-engineer authority records or things like that. I will say I tend to agree with the decision just because of we should always be in the habit of trying to call things by what they are called instead of giving them a new name that they might not be known by. So, obviously a lot of the questions that come through the NACO thing are from you, Mark, because you're very diligent about doing the updating of the authority records that are needed. But
well, it's self-defense, because if I don't, our innovative flipping system will flip them back. So I have to make those. I have to make those references go away. All right, done.
All right. Are we done? Okay. Thanks, Mark. All right. Well, we have timed this perfectly. You all have asked all the questions. One last thing, Keith says the DCRMR preface says the old versions will not be deprecated and can continue to be used with the original toolkit and or ACR2. That goes back a long time. I don't know. That was about a half hour ago, 20 minutes ago. All right. Thanks. Thank you to our panelists. We really appreciate your insight and your knowledge and your expertise here. Like I said, this is being recorded, but it's not going to be posted online publicly. We're instead going to use the recording to transcribe answers and things of that sort, like we did last year. So at this point, we have a 15-minute break, and we're going to finish the day up at 4:30 Eastern time with a couple of lightning talks, and then we'll finish up for the day. So thank you all, everyone, for a very informative and interesting session with lots of good questions. Okay, bye.